You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
We are going to shift the mode away from body transformation and really focus in today on cold versus flu and other based illnesses that a lot of people are falling ill with this winter, and also news about the new coronavirus. So why I want to go over this is that there's a lot of myths surrounding this virus, the actual repercussions from getting the virus itself, and how you can protect yourself and your family. So I want to make sure that we're really cognizant of this. And this really hit home just about a week ago when there was a confirmed case or outbreak of the coronavirus in Boston, where I'm from. So obviously, my two young girls could be at risk, myself, my wife, and all, of course, everyone in my community here in Boston. So what I want to do is start to break down what the coronavirus actually is, and then go through who's most at risk, what you can do to try to prevent it, and then what happens if you do end up getting this virus. So let's take it from the top. I mean, really, people have been asking, what should I do in terms of cold versus flu versus viral-based protocols? And I want to share that with you today. And honestly, I think it's going to be a lot simpler than you would have imagined, and that's because natural health works very differently than pharmaceutical-based approaches. And again, I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place for pharmaceutical-based intervention, but as you'll see today, most of what we're going to talk about, antibiotics, have absolutely no value at all in treating these specific conditions. So for those of you who are maybe just new or just hearing about the coronavirus, and it's just called sometimes the 2019-nCoV, although there's seven main strains, and I've been really doing a lot of research on this. So this was first as like a ground zero point in China, and I won't really butcher any of the names in terms of mispronunciations, but that is where the first diagnosed viral-based outbreaks were. And for sure now it's spread to many different parts of the world, with the United States, with Saudi Arabia, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, the U.S., and that includes Alaska, so continental U.S. and Alaska, and then also Scotland. So as of the time of the recording of this actual podcast, those are where confirmed outbreaks are from people traveling from China to all of these different countries. Now, for those of you who don't know what this coronavirus is, it is similar, but not the same as, but similar as MERS and SARS. So just to give you a little bit of background on those specifically, so let's first go over MERS, which is Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, also caused by a virus. And simply, now there are different versions of it, some calling it the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus. And this is MERS-CoV. So if you're seeing these in the news, just keep in mind also SARS, Severe Upper Respiratory Syndrome, also originating in China. These are different variations of similar symptoms, but different viral-based strains. Now, most of these are thought to first originate in animals, mutate, and make their way over to humans. So that is what we want to look at. Now, we don't know. We don't know if that's what happened or not, but we do know that typically these are more seen in, I think I was, again, doing a lot of research in reptiles, in bats that you see the corona-based virus before. So what are some of the symptoms? Well, the symptoms are like a severe cold or severe virus. And it is fever, a cough, sometimes a dry cough, like as in the flu, Sometimes GI-based issues, almost if you had the stomach flu. But the complications are different. So the complications can be shortness of breath, can be pneumonia, which is, again, how a lot of people are passing away, is through pneumonia, through complications. Most severe complications of the coronavirus: pneumonia, severe acute respiratory syndrome, kidney failure, and those are the typical ways. Because the virus itself is not dissimilar to a severe virus that you might get elsewhere. That's what we're going to start to go into today, because right now, as I really have the CDC, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, so the CDC website, I can always link this up for you if you'd like. Why don't I do that? I'm going to link up this for you today. So head on over to stevencabral.com/1461, and we will go over all of the different CDC-based recommendations, going over what some of the FAQs are, frequently asked questions, etc. Okay, so I'll go over that for you, and I'll link that up, and it's just simply going to be cdc.gov/coronavirus/about/index. Okay, so that gives you the symptoms and complications. What do you do if you're sick? Prevention, treatment, and transmission. I'm going to go over much of that today. Now, the reason why I want to go over this today, the coronavirus doesn't necessarily spread differently than a regular virus. So if you're trying to protect yourself against cold and flu being a virus, you protect yourself in the same way. So hand washing, trying not to go out in massively crowded places if possible. And when using a disinfectant, the only thing that so far has been seen to work really well is chlorine or bleach. But I am an advocate of using thyme-based oil and other things like that, which killed 99.99% of all cold, flu, and viruses. Okay? So you can still use natural-based methodologies if you'd like. I'm going to give you the protocols that we're using right now, should you like to do that based on cold and flu. Okay. The last part I'm going to go over is just some myths. So right now, people are saying, what medication can I take for the coronavirus or virus in general? There are no medications. Okay, no medications to date for the coronavirus. There are viral-based medications like a Tamiflu that people take for, viruses or the flu, but not specific to the coronavirus. So I just want to share that with you. Antibiotics are ineffective because the coronavirus is a virus. So keep in mind, there's two main different types of pathogens. Think of it this way. We've got bacteria. That's what antibiotics works for. And then we have viruses. Antibiotics are called antibacterials, right? Anti-life, antibiotic. That's what it stands for. They do not work against viruses from replicating, okay? So you do not need to take an antibiotic based on the coronavirus. However, should you get complications, such as bacterial pneumonia, etc., that might be the time when your PCP or specialist prescribes you an antibiotic, all right? So who is most susceptible to actually dying from the coronavirus? Just like any other virus, just like the flu, it's the same subset of people. And it is those people that are most immunocompromised, typically the elderly or the very, very young, right? So we have infants, very, very young children, and we have the elderly because their immune systems are not where they should be, right? But if you're 40 years old and your immune system's compromised, you're also at a little bit higher risk, okay? Also, other people with, in this case, asthma or heart disease might also, or kidney disease, might actually be at higher risk as well, since the virus can affect those specific areas of the body, okay? Severe upper respiratory syndrome. Okay, so let's see. The virus is too new to see if there are actual natural-based or anything like that in order to prevent it or keep it away. But I'm still going to share things with you, but it's too new, right? There's nothing that we've been able to do long-term studies on this. All right, let me see if I can find anything else that you want to know. Does a flu vaccine or pneumonia vaccine prevent you from getting the coronavirus? The answer is no. Okay, different strain, it will not help. Can your pets spread the coronavirus? The answer is there's no evidence to date saying that your dog or your cat could even be infected with this new coronavirus. So put your mind at ease there. Your pets should be okay. And that was it. Those are the main FAQs. So now let's start to break down, what do we do, right? What do we do? Well, I always share with you exactly what I like to do in my private practice. And I do this with my own children. So we got word that there's been actually a lot of cold and flu this year at my girls' school. So they're in 2 different buildings right now. They're obviously separated in that way, but they come home and they are wrestling with each other, hugging each other, kissing each other, which is great. But of course, whatever one has, the other is going to certainly be shared with, and same with myself, same with my wife. So luckily our dog is safe from apparently all of this. But here's the thing. We want to separate the two out. Colds, if it's bacterial in nature, which is a very small percentage. So I just want to say this as well. If your child or you gets a cold, the highest likelihood is that it's viral based, which means the highest likelihood is that you don't need antibiotics. And if you take antibiotics when you don't need them, you are weakening your immune system and leaving you susceptible to antibiotics not working in the future for what they're calling superbugs. Remember, the more antibiotics we use, the more these bacteria mutate. This is very interesting as well, since if you are someone that eats conventional-based meat, over 50% of all antibiotics go to the meat you're eating. Does that affect your overall health? Most likely. Most likely. And also, if we're being prescribed antibiotics, like I used to be prescribed antibiotics all the time, all throughout the winter by my pediatrician as a child, it leaves you more susceptible, leaves your own body weaker. Why? Well, you're always relying on the antibiotics. And also, so you're not building up your own immune system, but also at the same time, it is allowing for these bacteria to begin to mutate. So very, very careful. Again, if you need to use antibiotics, I'm not saying not to use them. What I'm saying is hopefully by using these natural-based protocols, you won't need to. And if it's viral-based, you'll recognize even if you have green mucus, that it can still be a virus. And then antibiotics are not going to work on that. Okay? So I just don't want to see us overusing antibiotics. And if you use antibiotics, please use the gut rebuilding protocol with a company like ours, Equilibrium Nutrition, or your qualified practitioner. Because if you're using antibiotics, you need to be rebuilding your gut right away because it's going to cause more harm than good. It really is. And you need to make sure, because antibiotics do not wipe out yeast, that you need to be doing something to keep that yeast at bay. All right? I just don't want to see you with so many of the complications that we see with other people in our practice. So now let's get right into it. Last thing I'll say is this. Most upper respiratory issues, sinus congestion, some throat, some chest congestion, typically viral in nature. And when we prescribe antibiotics for sinus-based issues, we see almost a 100%, or actually it is 100% recurrence of that infection in the future. So again, let's be smart about this for the short term and the long term as well. So I always say right off the bat, I got a virus. Well, I mean, I'll tell the full story in just a couple more months because I want to see how all of this plays out. But I got it, and I told people quite a bit about this. It's not the coronavirus, so everybody's okay. But I got a virus, a different strain that my body was at least used to, when I was traveling to Germany. Again, the irony does not escape me. I was at World Medicine Week, meeting with many different companies there, many different doctors, being introduced to doctors doing amazing things in natural cancer-based treatment protocols, etc. And I got a virus. Ended up getting sick on the way home. And since then, it really weakened my immune system, but dealt with it, feeling great. But I want to share that. So here's what I did, though. Very, very important. I made sure to listen to my body in terms of eating and nutrition. When I got a fever, I stopped eating food. I talked about this on a house call over the weekend. Some people believe in feeding a cold, but everyone, most natural health practitioners, believe in starving a fever. If your body says it's not hungry, you do not eat. And that's because all energy must be diverted towards basically the immune system and fighting this virus. So if you're eating food, you're asking your body to use a lot more energy in terms of digesting and breaking down that food. And the food most likely won't digest that well. So what do? How do we not lose too much weight? Well, that's not as much of a worry. So I probably lost 6 pounds during that 3 days that I was really fasting. It wasn't complete fast. The first day and a half basically was just some water. Very important that you do stay hydrated, because if you have a fever, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be losing water. So you want to make sure you're hydrated. The easiest way to figure that out is when you urinate. Well, hopefully you're urinating, because if you're dehydrated, you might not be. Make sure you're urinating every couple hours minimum. And when you urinate, your urine should be a light yellow. Not totally clear, because you don't want to lose out all the electrolytes from your body, but certainly not a dark yellow. If it's a dark yellow, we need to rehydrate. Don't just chug water, because it's just going to run right through you. You want to sip water. And if you do need the energy and the fuel, you can start to sip on broth. You can start to sip on from some fresh juices, low glycemic juices, hopefully fresh pressed that you did. You can always dilute them with some water. You can do some veggie-based juice, some green-based juice. Super, super simple, right? You can add some electrolytes as you need to it. Sodium, potassium. I mean, the easiest way to get electrolytes is squeeze of lime, pinch of sea salt. There you go. You have your electrolyte-based formula. You need a little bit of glucose because your body's feeling a little bit weak. You just add in a little bit of raw Manuka honey, which is great for cold and viruses, or raw wildflower honey. And there you go. You have your own little, basically, limeade right there. You could use a little bit of maple syrup if it digests better for you. And again, we're talking about 5-6 grams of sugar over a big bottle of water. So it's not going to have any effect to your fast, and it's certainly not going to have an effect on your blood sugar levels. Okay, so we have that right there. And the other thing that you could and should be doing for hydration is sipping on a lot of warm or hot herbal teas. Ginger, clove, turmeric, those are all excellent teas to be drinking. Hibiscus is a really nice one. Mint or peppermint if you need to. And then green tea, if you'd like some green tea, that would be okay. So vegetable broths, totally fine as well. If you make a chicken soup or something like that, don't eat the soup, strain it, and just drink the broth for now, as your body is telling you to really just hydrate and not eat. Okay, because again, you're diverting your energy towards your immune system. If you have a sore throat, gargle with some salt water. The high alkaline nature to it will help to kill some of the bacteria. Or you can gargle, if you're a little bit more adventurous, with some fire cider. It's even more potent, been shown to help kill strep and other types of bacteria. And I do recommend gargling with fire cider. It will burn, and that's because it contains garlic, and it contains cayenne and honey and apple cider vinegar. It's amazing, absolutely amazing for boosting that immune system. You can swallow that when you're done gargling with it. And you can do this every 3 hours if you'd like. Okay? Anytime we get a sore throat in my family, that's absolutely what I recommend. For my kids, they don't like that, so we use sprays to the back of their throat, echinacea with a little bit of garlic in there, and those can work great as well. Okay, what about in terms of essential oils? So I'm giving you all the things to do if you get cold or flu or virus. The flu is a virus, so just keep in mind, flu is a virus, but not every virus is the flu. So keep that in mind. What's the difference? Well, the flu is a stronger, more severe virus. So that means that it can be accompanied with a dry cough, typically higher fever, where a regular virus, you might not get a fever at all. So that's why if you have a fever, keep doing the things that I'm telling you about. Okay, a couple essential oils that I diffuse in my office and that we diffuse in my home as well. Cinnamon oil is a great one. Peppermint oil, eucalyptus oil, geranium, lemon oil, or any type of citrus would be great as well. Nice disinfectant. Thyme oil, one of my ultimate favorite. Oregano oil for sure. And then, of course, there is thieves oil. I've done a previous podcast on that. So simply go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, type in thieves, and you will find my podcast on thieves oil. That's without a doubt, that is clove in it. That's one of my favorites. So I use a lot of that. I'm actually diffusing it today as we do this podcast. So those are great to do. Don't take them internally. You can apply them to your skin. People always ask where. I typically apply the area that's needed, and then also where you're going to smell it throughout the next couple hours as it begins to diffuse in your own body. So on the wrists, behind the ears, you can do a little bit the third eye. You can do a little bit in the crown of the head. You can do even a little bit the tip of the nose or right above the lip, where you'll be smelling that for the next couple hours. Those are all Ayurvedic places to dab that oil as well. Any chest congestion, place it right on the sternum, right on the chest as well. All of it's great. So all of that works. Another great one for people with upper respiratory issues is to use a steam shower. Of course, that water should be filtered, but even if you don't work out at the gym, which you probably should be taking it easy, you can use the steam there if it's filtered, or you can use the sauna, but you would not do this if you had a fever, okay? So we're not going to increase the fever. Now, if you had a cold or virus without the fever, then that's often a good time to do the sauna or the steam because you're actually trying to create your own internal fever inside the body, all right? So it's a great one to do. So I don't do a sauna, I don't do a steam when I already have a fever because my body's already created the fever. It's doing its job. Again, in our household, you do what's right for you. We don't typically try to lower the fever for our girls unless it's above 102, getting towards 103. And we don't really lower it for adults until it's above 104, getting towards 105. Now, that's for us. That doesn't mean it's for you. There's a lot of people who won't let it get above 101 for kids. I'm okay with that. Again, we always have to do what we feel is best for our family, and that's exactly what you should do. And a lot of adults won't let it get above 103 for them. And I think that's fair. I think 101 and 103 is also fair. If you wanted to do that, that's okay. Now, the fever, what it's doing, though, is it's working to destroy the virus, destroy the bacteria, speed up the flow of white blood cells. So it's actually helping you. Remember, the fever is not the sickness. The fever is what your body created in order to destroy the sickness. Remember that. There's a huge difference, right? Okay. Nausea drops. So after you do your neti pot you can do right in the shower or outside the shower. Couple drops of citricidal in there if you'd like. A little bit of saline solution, some sea salt. Mix it up. Do each side of the nostril, let everything flow out, right? Kill the bacteria, kill the whatever's inside there. That's great. And then the nausea drops are typically just sesame oil with a little bit of the medicated oil. It's an Ayurvedic based formula. And you can just simply lie on your back and inhale 2 to 3 drops in each nostril. Let it come up into the sinuses. You could lean forward with your head between your knees and let that get right up into your sinuses for it to lubricate and also do its work. Epsom salt baths with any of the essential oils I just mentioned above are excellent. If you don't have a fever, run a nice hot bath. Get right in that hot bath, right? And if you do have a fever, then it might just be lukewarm, all right? Epsom salt is great, though. If you have a fever, you can do that. Now, in terms of foods, go easy on heavy protein and heavy fatty foods. Forget about whatever diet du jour that we're on right now. Go easy while you have a sickness, at least. You can go back to your caveman diet or whatever we're doing afterwards. What I want you to do is be healthy, keep your body really living at a just minimal intake of food so that your body can really work on these viruses, okay? Really, really important. So just easy to digest food. Fruits, no big salads or anything like that. Simple, easy to digest, okay? Supplements. What do we do for supplements? Raw honey, manuka honey, garlic cloves. Easy thing to do. Get a clove of garlic, crush it, let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, swallow it with some water or tea at night before bed, and that can allow you to kill a lot of viruses and bacteria inside of your gut and your body. Okay, ginger. If you're not doing ginger tea, it can be fresh ginger, grated ginger. It could be dried ginger tea bag. Absolutely fantastic. Zinc. This is the time to actually do some zinc loading. So zinc lozenges every hour, 1 zinc lozenge every hour, every couple hours can be fantastic. And zinc in general has been shown to lessen the duration of cold, flus, and viruses. So important one, typically people in my practice during the winter time are getting about 25 milligrams to 50 milligrams of zinc per day. The larger the person, the more zinc, or the more immunocompromised, the more zinc. We will go up to 75 milligrams when someone is dealing with an actual cold or virus, and then we take it right back down. Typically, people are using the balanced zinc, or they're using the zinc picolinate, and then they're also getting about 12 to 15 milligrams of zinc in their daily nutritional support. So keep in mind, these supplements are in addition to a daily nutritional support. Now, when I was fasting during those 2 days, did I do any daily nutritional support? No, I was on complete just water only. But then after that, I would do a smoothie. And the smoothie, I wouldn't drink very quickly. I would drink it over like maybe 2-3 hours. But the daily nutritional support was in there to give me a really easy source of getting those amino acids and just making sure that my body was staying strong enough. Okay, so zinc, fantastic using those elderberry lozenges I've talked about before. Sambucus, I believe, is the company, or Sambucol, that makes them. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is something that I do every 2 to 3 hours. Vitamin C loading is just what we call it. When anyone in my family has a cold, flu, or virus. Goes for my children. They use the liquid vitamin C. I swallow capsules. I also use the alkalizing vitamin C. So super easy to do. The alkalizing vitamin C is 2.5 grams, and that's what I take. That's exactly what I take, and I can just do that every 2 to 3 hours for waking throughout the day. It makes me hydrate, so I drink it with a lot of water. It's also alkalizing, which is great for the body while you're not feeling well. So it gives you more magnesium, potassium, and calcium. Magnesium, potassium, calcium. Those are the bicarb forms, which is what makes it more alkaline. People ask, why not use a glycinate form in that? And it's because it's not a bicarb, so a bicarb is not an alkaline form. So that's why we do it like that. Makes it easy on the stomach. That way you can take a good amount of vitamin C. How do you know if you've met your vitamin C tolerance? Well, you start to get loose stool. So you simply back off your vitamin C. And if you're doing 2.5 grams, you'd simply go to 1 gram. That's it. Okay. Others that we use, oregano oil for myself, echinacea, and elderberry, right? So those are my go-to right away. Are there other great things like astragalus? Sure. Could you use L-lysine and monolaurin and colloidal silver as part of an antiviral protocol? Absolutely. And we use those for more people with recurrent herpes-based issues or other viruses, HPV, etc. So we'll use them, but for an acute-based response, if it's not shingles, if it's not herpes-based, we typically go right to the oregano oil, echinacea, and elderberry. I've already given the children's protocol many, many times. Then it's 3 times a day. So basically, oregano oil, echinacea, elderberry, 3 times a day. You can do it more, but it's not like the zinc and vitamin C that you're doing every 2-3 hours. For my daughters, I've mentioned it before, but simply put, they get a syrup with some thyme and some oregano, and they do vitamin C, they do their elderberry, and they have echinacea. There we go. So that's that. Last one, I will say, because there's some good research behind it, oscillococcinum. It's by Boron, B-O-R, is that how you pronounce it? I think it's by Boron, B-O-R-O-N, I believe. Anyway, it's O-S-C-I-L-L-O-C-O-C-C-I-N-U-M. Yeah, it couldn't be more complicated to say or spell, but it's typically pronounced oxacillococcinum. And there's actually some good research showing that it does reduce the duration of cold and flu, just like zinc, by about 2 to 3 days. That's significant. Elderberry. What does it do? Well, I just did this on a Friday review. It reduces the duration of cold and flu by 2 to 3 days. So, but actually, that was up to 4 days. So really, really impressive. And for those people dealing with fever and body aches, again, the Epsom salt baths can be tremendously helpful. Putting a cool compress on the head. I've given things before about painting the feet with egg whites. You can check that out. It works for so many people that I can't really laugh it off anymore because, I mean, it's pretty impressive. There is some old, let's say, wives' tales. Now, when I say that, there's no disrespect. Actually, many of them really work, and that's the reason they've stuck around. Cut in an onion, put it beside your bed. Sleeping with an onion in the socks. Or painting the feet with egg whites, bringing down a fever very quickly. These are all things to check out. You know, again, we can all kind of like say that sounds crazy, except when you see that it works for so many people. And then, of course, boswellia and turmeric can really be excellent in terms of their anti-inflammatory benefits. Little longer show today. I didn't want to cut it short, but I wanted to bring you the updates on the coronavirus, cold, flu-based protocols, what we do in my own family. What we do preventatively is we do the same thing as if my girls got the flu or the coronavirus. So right now, for 1 week, while all this craziness is going on, they're actually getting the same protocol, the vitamin C, the echinacea, the thyme and oregano oil with the elderberry. And then we'll have them come off. And then if they end up getting a cold or virus, they'll go back on. So hopefully that was helpful today. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. Feel free to ask questions at CabralSupportGroup.com. Let me know what you thought on Instagram, just my name, Stephen Cabral. And of course, if this was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve.
Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.